So we're with Jordan School District. I'm Holly Hacker or David, right? So one of the things that happens a lot when I start looking at stuff is people start saying, wait, you're going to say what to who, when, how? Like, we're not really sure if we want you talking to the public or anybody else. So as we've had these conversations, one of the things that's come up is we have an awesome opportunity within our district that we have some super cool communication folks that have a lot of experience with it. And so we got in a discussion after seeing some things about like, hey, David, these are things like you should not do. And I was like, oh, like I would have thought I should do it that way. And that was kind of the inspiration and how we turned into kind of wanting to talk about this. And so I'll kind of let Sandy and Doug introduce themselves, but my theory here is there's lots of opportunities to hear me pontificate, but these guys have a lot of really great stuff to say.
We'll let you lead the discussion, but we're here to answer any questions we can. I'm Sandy Rees-Graff. I'm Director of Communications for Jordan School District. I worked in the news media all of my career leading up to this job. I was at Fox 13 News for 13 years. And prior to that, I'm a Minnesota girl. And I worked in a market in the Midwest for CBS News prior to that. So all of my career has been either working in the media or now the hardest job of all, trying to manage the media.
I'm Doug Flagler. I am the communications specialist for Jordan School District. I also have a background in TV news. I spent 11 years at ABC4 as a photographer, another 6 years at Fox 13 as a photographer, and then a producer of the lifestyle show. So we're very familiar with the media and how they operate, and have a long history working with them, working alongside them. And we have several friends that still work in the media. So,
yeah. So, you know, one of the things that kind of came to mind as we started to sit down and have a conversation about this is, why are we going to say anything to the media in the first place, or do we even want to? And so as we talked about that, one of the things to consider is what the real goal of why you're involving the media at all is. So can you guys share with us, like, what's the goal, or when is that useful to you or not?
So though we're a school district, I understand not everybody here is a part of a school district. So the advice that we're giving, I think, applies to anyone, no matter what organization you're in. Sometimes, Dave, we don't have the option of not saying something because they take that option away from us. But the number one goal of saying something is obviously transparency. We want to be transparent. Dave is pretty good at letting us know when we've had an incident occur where sensitive information has been shared or accidentally shared with people it should not be shared with. If the media gets their hands on it, they will run with it. And the last thing you ever want to see is one of your parents or somebody that works within your organization to see it on the news before they hear it from you first. So the number one reason for saying anything would be transparency. Number two, education and keeping the calm. Quite often, if we don't say anything, guess who's going to say something? Guess where it's going to take off if people start hearing rumors? Social media. It's our number one challenge, bar none, of anything we do these days. Even local news. We've been in the news a lot the past couple of days, Jordan School District. It's one thing trying to control that narrative. It's a whole nother ballgame trying to control what you see on social media.
And what you say can help build trust too amongst your clients or whoever it is that you're working with, and within the people within your own organization. So it's really important to get on top of whatever message that you need to send out before you let other people do that.
And it doesn't have to be a lot. Oftentimes we see people wanting to go into way too much detail. All people want to hear, if they have been a victim of a mistake, they want to hear something. They want to hear an apology. Number one, they want to hear an apology. And quite often that may keep them from going to the media. But there are so many times we don't have a choice on whether or not to talk to the media because parents or patrons take that out of our hands.
Yeah. And so as we got talking about that concept, and a lot of times from the IT perspective or the IT guy perspective, I'm a long way from getting the chance to interact directly with the communications team or even having anything to do with that. We're a smaller organization, right? So I can actually just walk over to Sandy and Doug's office. But one of the things that came to my mind is, we had a conversation one time about, well, when do you want me to start telling you about stuff? And she's like, well, if it's important. And I'm like, well, do you want to sleep at night or not? Right. And so one of the things that became a question I wanted to talk about was, what is the goal for me, or from a security practitioner's perspective, of escalating it to be higher outside of IT, right? So what are we really trying to achieve in that? And for me, in an honest evaluation, it's usually twofold. One, it's something that I know we need to do something about and I need additional resources. Or two, it's a CYA that I don't want to get blamed that I didn't say something to someone just in case. And so, to me, that's become the goal of why I would share it informationally internally. But I mean, for you guys, why do you want to hear it internally?
Because it's our responsibility to control the message. Again, let it be our narrative. If something happened within our organization and we're responsible for it, give me the opportunity to build a defense for us. No matter how hard it may be to share that information, we just need to have a heads up. The last thing I want to know is a big event that happened a week ago, and now it's Friday afternoon at 4:00, and you're saying, we had a problem here. I appreciate knowing about it, but give us time to construct language that isn't going to be inflammatory, that's not going to make the media say, oh, that's the story we're gonna pursue. But that may be calming and may help soothe the fear of people who may have been a victim of whatever the incident is. We don't need to know everything, but if it rises to the level where it's outside of our organization, it's impacting hundreds of people, as a school district, we're required by law to report it to the victims if it has impacted 500 people or more. Our threshold is much lower than that. Typically, we will let parents or patrons or anyone know at a much lower number than that. But, whether or not we do anything with it is a whole nother story. But if it has broad impact, we need to know, because we need time to craft a message that is going to calm fears and hopefully keep it out of the media.
Well, and that's one of the things that I've had to learn in that aspect too, of like, hey, this is totally something that's like super important and I care about it a lot. This is a big deal and people are going to be super worried about it. And I give it to them and they're like, cool, thanks. And I'm like, well, we're going to make a statement, or what are we going to say? And that's part of professionally beginning to understand I'm an expert in what I do. They're an expert in what they do. And just because I think it's important and the whole world should be told, it's actually really good to have someone to kind of secondary or tertiary check that sense of urgency or need to communicate it.
Yeah, and I know not everyone may have a communications department within your organization. If you do, take advantage of them, use them. If you don't, take it to the next level, or, I can honestly offer this. I mean, Doug and I get calls all the time from people from other school districts or outside of our organization.
Smaller school districts that don't have a communications department will call us and sometimes ask for our advice, and we're always happy to give it.
Because sometimes in sharing those situations that we're going through, we all learn. So we're always available as well.
And
then I think you said, do words matter, right? He asked me this a lot. And yes, words matter. Words matter. Because now more than ever in media, there is an appetite, a never-ending appetite for sensationalism in journalism like we've never seen before. And it's frustrating. So if you have an incident and you put a word out like attack, hacker, breach, they will latch onto that. And once it's out, there's no getting that language back. That's why we need time to craft messages, to carefully word them in a way that doesn't inflame the situation, that doesn't cause panic, widespread panic. These are stories that we plucked off that have been out there for a while. But if you listen to them, they've latched on to those words that they know will get them clicks, will get them views, will get them viewers. Whether these stories are actually accurate is another thing, but they love to use those strong words that will really get the public upset. So take a look.
To Pierce County, where a massive data breach in the Bethel School District has left staff, students, and their parents feeling vulnerable. And they want to know why it took the district more than a month to say they were hacked. The district says the network was hacked February 12th, and they discovered it the next day. A week later, the district says it found missing information, but letters to those impacted did not go out until March 18th.
Leaked hundreds of thousands of private CCSD student files, and that hacker group has sent those files to Fox 5. We have verified the information they've sent is real. The hackers reached out directly to Fox 5's Kim Passoff. She joins us live now at CCSD headquarters to explain. Kim?
Yeah, we did not solicit this information. The hackers came to us. They first reached out to us 1 week ago tonight after a previous report about the cyber attack on CCSD. They reached out to us via my personal Facebook page, and at first they did not identify themselves as the hackers.
It is concerning. Confusion is spreading across the Carlisle area school district as students were left without internet for the entire school day today.
So much is heavily relying on that technology, and to know that it's temporarily cut off, it's just a little bit more of an explanation would have been nice.
On Friday morning, parents were sent this email warning of a possible security incident that caused the district to shut down the internet. Parent Jessica Briggs says the letter left her wanting more answers about what's going on.
It didn't give any more details. It was very vague. And even the kids came home, and what they were told was very bad.
A whirlwind kind of week at the Minnesota Department of Education.
We got caught up in a global data breach.
Department spokesman Kevin Burns says IT professionals have been working nonstop to identify which files were accessed during a data breach last week and who is affected.
There were essentially 4 big buckets of information that were accessed.
Franklin County Public Schools says there's no evidence that anyone's personal information was stolen in the ransomware attack that canceled classes Monday, but they're early in the investigation. An official with the school tells me their team is performing a thorough investigation with the help of cybersecurity experts. And if they find any evidence that information was stolen, the school division will notify the impacted individual and even provide free credit monitoring. FCPS also says they didn't pay any ransom in the attack.
So you see those words used over and over and over again, and that gets people worried. It gets people concerned. And what happens if we don't handle it in a timely manner with the right language in a message? All of a sudden, the organizations that are under attack become under attack again by the news media, saying we didn't do enough, we didn't say enough, we weren't transparent. And words do matter.
Yeah, and we have our own example of why words do matter. Several years ago, we had a student that made some threats to some other classmates. Those threats weren't founded. There was no credibility behind them.
Police investigated.
But a well-meaning employee from another organization found out about it, wanted to highlight the Safe UT app because it was fairly new at the time, and wanted to get that out there that the Safe UT app worked. But in their leak to the media, they kept using the term active shooter thwarted. For 2 days, we worked very hard to get that narrative taken away, to change that narrative, and we couldn't because that leak had used the words active shooter thwarted. That's all parents heard. We lost 30% of our students that day, didn't even show up for school, and the next day, and it impacted other schools around that. So just those 3 little words had such an impact that went beyond just our district. And once you say something, once you put it out there to the public, you can't get it back. So you have to be careful about the words that you do use.
Yeah, especially the media. I mean, I can't tell you how much time we spent on the phone calling the news organization saying there was no thwarted attack. There was never.
There was never a weapon. There was nothing.
But it was such a great news story. It lasted for 2 days. We had reporters reporting this incident in front of one of our high schools for 2 days, even though they knew it wasn't really true, but it was true enough, so they went with it.
You guys afraid to say anything publicly anymore to anyone ever, right? So as I started to have these conversations and they pulled out these examples, I'm like, yeah, so I'm just never going to talk to anyone again, right? This seems like the safest way to handle it. And it was kind of a funny experience because then Sandy and Doug said to me, all right, David, so if you get approached by the media, what are you going to do? And I went, oh, that's really simple, right? I'm just going to put a bag over my head and run in the office, right? And so I now know better. This video is definitely nothing I ever did, but it's worth walking through some examples here.
Yeah, and these may be somewhat extreme examples, but this is exactly what the media is after. This is the reaction they want if they ambush you or try to get the gotcha moment.
And these live on past their organization.
If you'd like to...
Who do you work with?
Hey, were you serving expired delivery? Ma'am, don't touch the camera.
Don't put the camera in my face.
Like, we need to ask you about your violations.
So it's okay. All we're doing is trying to ask you some questions. Chris, give me the chance to say something.
Why did you push me? Well, they gave me the chance before I said all the things out.
Yeah, these are real situations that this is not how the people intended to react, but they were surprised by media who showed up uninvited and approached them about some serious allegations. But again, when you overreact, when you put your hand in front of the camera, when you try to put coat over your head, that's exactly the reaction they're looking for, and they'll run it over and over and over again in a promo with the story because that becomes part of the story.
And then it gets uploaded to YouTube and to Facebook, and then you are bigger than you ever could have been had you just been polite.
Yeah. We have another example. This one not as dramatic, but again, this woman's caught off guard. I feel sorry for her. And watch as this reporter, and this is quite often a tactic they use, he's got his microphone tucked on by some papers on his side. So no one, other than the fact that there's a camera following them, would suspect that he's actually conducting an interview. He's conducting an interview here. Watch it.
Drew Griffin with CNN. Oh, how do you say? Hey, we've been trying to reach you and talk to you about the widespread fraud that's in the Medi-Cal drug rehab business, but we're told that neither you nor the program director nor anybody at the state of California will talk to us about it. In an uncomfortable moment, the secretary at first refused to speak. Secretary, do you know Alex Ferdman, a convicted felon who apparently runs one of these clinics and has been billing the state of California for several years, despite the fact that there have been complaints registered with the department about him? He is convicted of a major insurance fraud in the state of Texas, but for somehow was able to get certified and has been billing. I'm just wondering if there's anybody in the state of California that's concerned about this fraud. Then finally answered a question.
The state of California takes fraud very seriously, and there are many investigations that are underway. The allegations, all allegations, are given full and fair consideration. And you've caught me running because I'm late for a meeting that I'm chairing. That's all I have to say.
Are you concerned that there is massive fraud? Because that's what we're finding out. And number two, as Secretary of Health, could you have Toby Douglas just sit down and talk to us about our specific question?
Excuse me.
So they got exactly what they were after. They knew that if they ambushed her, if they did the gotcha moment, they would catch her off guard. She wouldn't know what to say. She did do one thing right. I wish she would have done it right off the bat, is just stop, make a quick statement to them, say, I need a little more time. If you give me your card, I'll get back to you with a more detailed answer or explanation. But you saw she tried to get in the bathroom and hide. The door was locked. And it's unfortunate, but this is the kind of moment they wait for and they watch for, and they try to engage in that way.
So with those concepts, I asked him to look, just give me a list, right? I'm a checklist person, or I have a procedure I want written down. And I was surprised that the answer was, yeah, invite him inside. Ask him to sit down and say, yeah, let me go find someone to help you, right? Just have a seat here.
If you have a communications department, say, hey, let me get my communications department involved. Let me get somebody else involved. It buys you a little time. That's kind of what you're looking for in these situations, is being able to buy yourself some time before continuing on.
Really, and this is a case where I'm serious when I say you kill them with kindness, because they won't put that on TV. It's not adversarial. It's not what they want. If you're, we've been tempted, and sometimes have, when they show up, how's your family? How are your kids doing? Put it back on them, because that kind of stuff is not going to make air. But be kind to them, be friendly. Like Doug said, buy yourself some time, whether it's asking them to sit in the lobby, have a seat. I'll get back to you in a minute. Tell me what you're looking for, and we'll make sure you're taken care of.
Let them do the talking, because if they're doing the talking, you don't have to. And so, ask them some questions like, what are you looking for? What do you need? And then offer to help them and say, oh, let me get back to you. Let me look into that.
And the most important thing here, we get calls from colleagues all the time that said, so-and-so news organization called us and we have to go on this afternoon. You have zero obligation ever to go on TV or to talk to someone with a microphone.
Or to even provide a written statement, right?
We will provide a written statement.
But we're not obligated to.
We're not obligated. We never say no comment if the media reaches out to us, because that's a sign. They always just assume no comment means you're hiding something. So
kind of seems guilt.
Right.
It's lied.
Doug and I have taken the approach that make it boring. Whenever we can, we make a story boring. And you know what the number one thing there is? If they don't have us on camera to pit against parents or patrons or whomever, whether it be some kind of a security breach or something, they're upset at us. If they don't have us to pit them against the parents or the patrons, it's not much of a story.
Reading a statement on air is not great TV.
Yeah. So more often than not, we provide written statements now just to stay out of the fray, to not contribute to that sensationalistic kind of reporting and the drama that it stirs up, especially on social media. We're not so much worried about the 6 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock news anymore. It's the stuff they post on social media that is the most damaging to any school district or any organization.
And I think it's also important to notice that all of these points are pretty much points that you could give. Nowadays, there's a lot of people with cell phones that if they're upset at you, they will record you. We oftentimes have principals and staff members that, they get ambushed by people with a cell phone recording them. And these things all hold up for that as well, because those people are just going to post it straight to social media. They're looking for that gotcha moment. They're looking for the emotion. They're looking for sensationalism. And by doing these things, that takes away some of that sensationalism.
This also, with this understanding, helped the answer an age-old question I always wondered. But if you've ever been to the communications office, there's always a basket of treats and drinks and whatever. And it's like, what does that department have a special basket of that? That's why. So that they can just invite them in and say, yeah, here, have a drink, have a sip, we're going to help you, right? Because that buys that time stuff. But I finally figured out what the secret treat basket's about. And that's why.
It's also for us, David. So what do we want to know about a potential breach? First of all, we need to know how to protect you. We need to know how to protect our organization, or you need to know how to protect your organization. So was it an internal threat? Was it something that could have been prevented? And we don't ask, was it our fault? Because we want to place blame. We ask, was it our fault? So we know how to build a defense. So we know how to apologize to the people that are potential victims or that were victims, and do it in a manner that's not going to get them even more upset. So
and once again, it builds trust. If we can build trust in our communities, it'll go a long way, because once we've established trust, it'll continue to other events that may occur.
Right. When we've seen that in our district a lot. And then, is it happening to us? Is it something that we can control? Or are there other entities, other agencies that are also going through this? David's been really good when he hears something coming down the pike about a national threat or something that is playing out nationally and targeting school districts or targeting certain organizations or classrooms. He lets us know so that we can build a defense and can get some messaging that if and when it does strike us, we're prepared. So have that kind of relationship where, you do come to us with that kind of thing, and it has helped in the past.
That's how they got to learn what Flipper Zero.
Yes.
They're like, what is this weird thing?
I think he told me about Flipper Zero on Friday, and by Monday it was all over the media, and I'm like, I appreciate.
And we have been able to find some of that stuff because a lot of times it's like, I wonder. But because we've established this relationship, sometimes you just tell them, hey, there's this thing, if you hear this word, just call me, right? Like, I don't need to explain to you what the whole Flipper Zero thing is, but if you hear that word, it's got something to do technology-wise, so call me about it. So I'm teaching them vocabulary just like they're teaching me vocabulary not to say. I'm teaching them vocabulary as flags of what can come back to things I can help them with.
Yeah. So, and, say it to us, say it as simple as you can, because, I'll be honest, sometimes we don't speak your language. We speak a different language, but the language that we need to share it with, it needs to be a language that is commonly understood. And we don't get into specifics. We keep our messaging, even when we've had a breach. Some people get way into the weeds and share way too much. There's a fine line between sharing too much and not sharing enough, but we keep it really brief. Tell us what you know, not what you suspect. Also, like I said, the question of, and we will ask this all the time, could we have prevented it? We're not looking to blame anybody. We as an organization will take the blame. We're never going to tell a media outlet or parents who call to say, who did this? Who's responsible for this? Jordan School District. That's who's responsible. I don't care what department it is. A couple of years ago, if we have time for that slide, we did mention a secretary, not by name, in a building when we sent out a letter. I feel bad about that. We should never be naming any one individual in a building where somebody can figure out who it is, because in this environment these days, you just never know how upset people are going to get. So we as an organization will always take responsibility for whatever happened.
Yeah, I mean, how many of you have conducted a scream test in your career? All right, so, with the scream test concept, right, it's always like, yeah, crap, I totally pushed the wrong button, right? And one of the things that came up to my mind is, so I wasn't really sure, or like, hey, this totally happened and I freaking told you so, right? Like, I've got my, I told you and risk accepted register that I could just pull out and be like, I told you so mentally. But in the end, right, usually when we go and do the research and you look at different things across the industry, the smart people don't say, Ryan Ness at Canyon School District did it, right? That's what happened, right? Instead, yeah, you can track the LinkedIn later and see what CISO maybe got penalized for that behavior. But it really doesn't help them to blame it on anybody else. And it actually makes it more ineffective from an apology perspective or directing the communication perspective. If they're like, oh yeah, this dude that we hired named Holly Hacker did some hacky thing, and right, that actually is a very poor message. And so it's in the institution's best interest to not identify it either.
I mean, if I actually could say it was Holly Hacker, I think I would like to do that. When do we want to start telling, or when do we want you to start telling?
So when do you want to start? And this comes back to that whole conversation of, okay, look, do you want to sleep at night? Do you want to learn what a SIM is and what all the alerts mean and severity levels? And she's like, I don't even know what any of those words are, right? But here's some guidelines, right, on when they do want to hear from me.
Yeah, I mean, when I heard that you might have to set up a desk in my office, I decided very quickly that nope, I don't need to know about everything. and honestly, I know how overwhelmed you all are when I listen to David. So we don't need to know about everything. The number one question is, can you address it yourselves? Is this something where we can make some phone calls and adequately address what happened and know that parents aren't going to freak out. We can explain, we can apologize, we can say, here's what we're going to do for you as a result of this. If it can be handled by making a few phone calls, I may want to know about it, but I don't need to know details.
And also the reaction of those people in those phone calls. Are they really upset? Are they threatening to go to the media? Are they, talking about it on social media? That is also important.
Yeah, we need to know. I mean, whoever you are reporting to, because I can't tell you how often we hear, oh, they threatened to go to the media, but they don't mean it. They're not going to go. They'll never go to the media. Guess what? Turn on the TV and the next day it's on the media. So if you ever hear of a threat of someone wanting to go to the media, we need to take it seriously, because these are the kind of stories that sell, and they sell big time. They get clicks. They love using this attack language and hacker language. And just, does it impact a larger group? If you've got 100 people impacted, 200, I want to know about it. I don't care what the situation is, because chances are somebody's going to talk about it and it's going to get out. And I'd rather have them hear it from us than see it on the news. I think if you can just go back one more. Just the other thing is, will it make an impact outside of IT? If it's going to be confined to your department, I think I don't need to know about it. But man, if anybody's ever threatening to go to the media and it is impacting hundreds of people, we do need to know. Okay. You've sent some things to me. I sometimes when David has an incident, I'll say, just send me the information. And oftentimes I get it and I'm like, I have no idea what you're saying to me. So try the best you can to say what has happened in language that other people will understand, what was compromised, why it happened, how are we fixing it? If we can tell people how we have gotten on top of it and are fixing it in a timely manner, that goes a long way.
Proactive statement is always a great statement to be able to send out when we're announcing something has happened.
Right. And apologize. Yeah. Apologize. Apologies go so far. Before you do anything else, apologize. And then we will always ask David and his team what their recommendation is, because you know this stuff and far better than we do. We had a situation last week. We went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Do we send something? Do we not? We're communicators. We're always going to push towards sending something, but at the end of the day, we did not. And that one turned out just fine so far.
I thought we did.
Okay.
But what's interesting about this is one of these things we've learned is establishing this proper channel, and especially doing it ahead of time. So between Sandy's team and myself, there's like 3 layers of management, but it's actually a cool experience for me as the security practitioner to be able to offer the recommendation on what we might do to mitigate it, right? So that often looks like 2 things when I provide that to Sandy and Doug. I say, hey, this is how we fix the issue, but here's the bigger way or the institutional change we might talk about as a result to drive that change. And one of the things that adds value to is when they're in the, what are we going to talk about in the public and how are we saying it, and that kind of emotional crazy mode. Already I've seeded the language I want them to start talking about, right? So how many times do you think I told them 2FA was going to solve the problem, right? And then eventually we got 2FA, right? And what they don't realize is they were a huge part of getting 2FA sold for me across the organization because of seeding like that. So from the IT side of things, don't forget the chance to both remediate the immediate incident and plant a seed for how to get that defense in depth further.
Yeah. And how to, relieve some of the stress. Again, just said that relationship that you build with your communications teams or whomever it is that you would go to. We have templates. We have save every message that you ever send out in any kind of an incident, because that will be like gold to go back on. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. So we have templates for a number of different situations that have come up in the past, and we rely on those templates. Anticipate public concerns. Doug and I are pretty good about that. We keep an eye on what's going on social media. Like I said, Dave lets us know if there's something coming down from national that we should know about. We do media training in Jordan School District. Doug and I do. We do it once a year, at least for all administrators. It's invaluable for them. And if anybody's ever interested in that training, we'd be happy, more than happy, to do it for you. It's about an hour long. And then again, just staying informed on current cybersecurity trends, like we talked about, is really important.
When you do tabletops and role playing for that stuff, the input that communications can give you in that will change the entire experience of that and actually help you be much better prepared, right? Because the last thing I really want to do when I'm dealing with ransomware is trying to explain it to Sandy and Doug and about what to do. But when we've done that in a tabletop and run through it, then they've got a plan to do it so they don't have to bug me while I'm trying to fix it, right? But then they can also manage the need for that public communication at the same time.
And this is something I hate to talk about, but we have to. We deal with it on a weekly basis, and we get numerous grandmas in the Government Records Access Management Act. And whether
It will only apply to those of you that work in government or have contracts with government entities.
So the grandma allows all of your emails to be, they are subject to grandma. And there is, again, a never-ending appetite now on the part of news organizations and parents to grandma us. They try to get our cell phone text messages, which is kind of a gray area. We haven't given those up yet. But in almost every case, we are required to give up emails. And some of them can be very sensitive. We can redact some things, but the best advice I can give you on that today is if you are at a point in your organization where something has happened and it's serious and it could be controversial, don't have a conversation via email. Pick up the phone and have conversations on the phone. Don't have conversations via email because it will be subject to grandma. And if people get their hands on it, what you hoped would be forever private will be forever public.
And if you're a private organization, but you're emailing a government entity, your emails to them are subject to government records laws. So they could become open records that could be anybody that wants to submit a grammar request could obtain.
Now, you can challenge them, but from experience, I will tell you, the records committee where reporters or whomever can appeal to them if we don't give them what they want. Man, I want to say 9 times out of 10, maybe a little bit less, they will favor news reporters. Not so much just everybody else, but they really were established so that the media had access to government records. So just keep that in mind. I think it's really good advice. If you're going to have a conversation about something sensitive within the organization, do it over the phone.
Yeah, I mean, as security practitioners, we know there's a log for everything, right? So if you can think of a log conversation about it, right? As much as like, hey, picking up the phone is like, I'd just rather not talk to people. I have learned, and we've done this a few times, right? And if we were further apart, I'd get more steps in, right? But when we have a discussion going on, it's okay. I'm going to my office, we're doing this. And then they're coming back and doing this. And I'm like, we could just email this back and forth or just put it on a Google document and collaborate. And she has pens and paper in her office. And I'm like, hang on, I got to find some paper, right? But that is really a concept of, because I get to help fulfill those sometimes, right? It's like, oh yeah, man, it is actually worth the effort for it to not be written down. And it's not because the concept is I don't want somebody to read it or I don't think they have a right to know that information. But just as we saw before, it's important that the crafting happens in a way that most accurately reflects what happened.
You don't always want somebody to hear your consciousness stream, what you're thinking out loud. And if you're putting it into an email, they're going to be seeing what you're thinking out loud.
Yeah. So we have a quick example of a phishing incident that happened, and it targeted students, offering them jobs. It got through a teacher's email, right?
Yeah, so we have certain controls in place, right? And this was one of those this is an interesting example because to me, I found this extremely concise. And the feedback that I've gotten back is like, whoa, this was way too much, right? But conceptually, what happened is we had a teacher's account get compromised, and then that allowed them to email students within the domain. And it ended up being a phishing account and had a bunch of things. But you'll notice I start saying a lot of information that like they didn't really need to know, right? Our free version of Google stops giving us detailed reports after 10,000 things, so we can't tell you precisely, right? Like I could have gone, we know it went to at least 10,000 students and could have been as many as 52,000. I didn't need to explain 2 paragraphs worth of my rant about why Google won't let me see all that.
Actually, what happened here is I said, send me what people need to know, and you sent me this. I said, people do not need to know this, but thank you, David. I need to know this. So at the end of the day, what happened here, we called the students that had clicked and engaged with this individual to some degree and had conversations with them and those conversations with their parents, and that went really well. So we felt confident that was going to be kept within a pretty tight circle. But what we did do was we sent a letter out to all parents and all employees about the dangers of clicking on things. And it became an educational moment for us. And anytime you have something like that happen and you see the opportunity to, engage with and educate your parents and your employees, that's what we did here. And it was very simple. We didn't get one call. We didn't get one question of somebody saying, okay, we know there's more to this. They just assumed, which is true, we were trying to protect them. So this often does work, and it did in this case, and it didn't go any further.
They never asked me what employees clicked on and applied to this extra job, right, through their work email.
Yeah, we have some other examples of what we sent out, and just suffice to say, in one of them, I think it was at this one, where we mentioned it was an elementary school secretary. I would never do that again. Avoid that at all costs. Don't place the blame on someone other than the organization. Apologize at the beginning of any letter. Tell them what you're going to do for them to make them whole again or make them feel safe, and apologize at the end of the letter as well. So we had a couple examples of that, and we have a video we want to end on, I think. We always like to end our presentations on a high note, but before we get there, does anybody have any questions that we could perhaps answer? Yeah.
At what point do you
Yeah, that comes up a lot, but actually we don't get our attorneys in my experience. I've been with the district now for 12, almost 13 years. We haven't had to get our attorneys involved, at least not on the stuff that I've been involved with. Now, you may have conversations, but we have an in-house attorney, and I wouldn't hesitate to run something by them. Sometimes the advice that we get from attorneys, I will tell you, and I love our in-house attorney, and I love the attorneys that we work with, they want us to share more, or they want us to share it in a different way. And Doug and I have been doing this long enough that we kind of trust our instincts. But it's always good to collaborate with them. If you're a little bit nervous about what you're sending out, I wouldn't hesitate to collaborate with them.
Or if you have questions about what you need to report or what is required by law, I would say that
bring them in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that stuff's worth figuring out beforehand. So, Sandy mentioned we had something happen last week, and the question came up of, okay, exactly how many people and when do we need to, or what do we need to? And it was like, they're asking me as the IT guy, and I'm like, okay, I think there was this and I think there was that. And so I had to go do research and get it written down. And then I gave it to him. Everybody's like, okay, cool. And I'm like, so look, right? That's what my perception is. But I would feel better if you guys made sure that legal reviewed that and had that conversation. So then that was pre-established. Because figuring out if I have to say something, when I have to say something based on regulation, or what the internal perception is going to be in terms of our stock market price, all of those things, it's much easier to figure those things out beforehand.
Yeah, and just know you are required by law when it reaches a certain threshold of reporting, and just be aware of that.
And if your company does business in Utah, if it impacts more than 500 individual citizens, regardless of whether you're a private company or not, it is now state law that the notification has to happen. And you have like 5 days. It's very short.
Yeah. Anybody else? Yes.
Inslee school districts store student census. They also store, let's say, credit cards info, or like pay much money as box fees.
So we do a lot of risk transference on things like this intentionally. So, for example, when we talk about payment processors, we intentionally transfer that risk off to the payment processor so that we don't have it, right? There are certain pieces of information that we absolutely do have to have, right? I have to know a student's date of birth. I have to see their birth certificate, right? I need to know their address. I need to know their age. I need to know their sex. I need to know, right? All of these different things, right? And we work very carefully to define what each type of data becomes, right? Because there's certain pieces of data that it's not that big of a deal, right? So if a student's first name and last name is published, the state's actually given us a definition of, okay, first name, last name isn't such a big deal, right? But I also have, on occasion, medical records, right? Because we have special education plans for kids where there's doctor justifications and things like that. So we try to be very careful about that and identifying things. The frank aspect of this is, as a public school district, tools that really watch all that and look at it are very expensive. There's a couple sponsors downstairs that sell that stuff for way too much money. But conceptually, right, we have that insider threat risk as much as anybody does. Most often when that becomes an issue is somebody accidentally sent an email with something that had more than they intended to, right? Or they accidentally set the Google sharing link to be public. And so that kind of makes it so we pay attention to it. But at the same time, our students have fresh identities. And so as much as they're after our staff information, the hacking folks are way more interested in my students' information. And so I get this strangely overbalanced focus of, I'm huge, right? I have 57,000 students and 8,000 staff and 65 locations. And I have the same budget that your small startup does have for security. And so it makes a different approach to a lot of those things.
Okay. Anybody else? If not, like I said, go ahead.
Oh, I do want to preface before we go to this video too that media can be your friends. If you have positive stories, share it with them. Don't be afraid to share the good things that are going on at your work that would rise to that level.
Because then when the bad stuff comes along, you already have a reputation for good things happening within your organization. So we work really hard to share the good stuff. We work just as hard to keep the bad stuff out of the media. But sharing your good stories, they love to have positive news as much as they love to have the negative stuff right now.
And it gives you a rapport with those news organizations. Yes, you have that relationship.
Relationships are everything when it comes to bad news getting out there about your organization. So finally, I know that you guys are in the profession that you are in. You're always watching out for the bad actors, and you're very suspicious, as you should be, of those bad actors. But on the road with Steve Hartman, we love this reporter. He found a gentleman in Ogden, Utah, who does the same thing. He's always looking for those bad actors and how they might be ripping people off or stealing identities or stealing from them.
One other thing here too is the other piece worth reviewing in that tabletop in that conversation too is there are other people that are come in and exert some influence, right? Like you mentioned the legal question, right? Your cyber insurance company is going to have some really strong feelings about what you do or don't say. What's interesting about that is they're strong feelings, not strong mandates. And so as we work with a lot of our law enforcement counterparts and talk about things like that, and one of the things that we've seen that they've said to us is like, hey, it would be awesome if as institutions, you're like prepared to like report to us, because insurance companies have started telling them, don't talk to police, right? Like, we don't want you talking to the police because we don't want the police to know that we pay what the insurance company doesn't want the police to know what they did, right? Whether they paid it or whatever. But it's always relevant to make sure you're paying attention conceptually of there's so many obligations, whether it be best practices or people or laws or insurances or legal, right? That's really why, yeah, that's a them problem, right? And that's worth trying to push that too.
Okay. All right. So like I said, I know you're suspicious, as you should be, of bad actors, but this gentleman in Ogden, Utah made national news because he went after a bad actor, and doggone it, he was going to win. But the tables were kind of turned on this. So a bad actor, actually not so bad. We wanted to share just an uplifting story. We thank you so much for allowing us to spend some time with you today. Best of luck in all you do. If you have questions, reach out to us. And David, thank you for the opportunity to present.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.